Welcome back, everyone. I am Una Krieg. I'm here to facilitate and moderate today's symposium with the amazing support of the rest of the Brave team who are busy bees running around in the background, making sure that this seems seamless. So just another shout out to them for enabling to hold this space all together. And I'm so excited to move into the presentation section. These are a little bit shorter presentations, so we have more specific timelines. If the presentation starts to go a little bit long, what I will do is I will pop my video back up on the screen and sort of gently nudge just so that presenters have an opportunity to find a spot to pause before we move into Q&A. And without further ado, I would like to introduce a new to me human, Alex Wilson, who is going to be talking about utilizing technology and social media for digital accessibility in low barrier spaces. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to ask first, unfortunately, the universe is conspiring against me and the Wi-Fi in my house is down. So I came to a cafe. There is some music playing. Can y'all hear it? Is it too loud? Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen then and show you my slides. And yes, you should be able to see me. I like a nice pun. I like a fun title. This is making friends in low places, right? This is not to disparage our clients and say that they are in low places, but just talk about low barrier spaces, right? And talk about utilizing technology and social media for digital accessibility. So I want to start off with a quick land acknowledgement. I think it's really important as we engage in these discussions about justice, equity, to be mindful that we're on stolen land. So I'm in Philadelphia and I am on stolen Lenni Lenape land. The history of the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape goes about 10,000 years. It includes people from Delaware, New Jersey, and a bit of New York, right? And this is a land that they were on. Like I said, I think it's really important to be mindful in today's discussion, in all discussions, how these things shape our conversations about equity and accessibility. So my name's Alex Wilson. I'm a harm reductionist. I'm a community organizer. I'm an art teacher and a public health educator. I wear a lot of different hats. As an educator, I focus mainly on somatic trauma, just like trauma in the body and how it's stored in the body, how it's passed down through different generations, right? Disability justice, anti-oppression, and of course, drug user health and safety. So my why, so a lot of folks should be familiar with the term intersectionality. Intersectionality is a term coined by Black feminist Kimberly Crenshaw. Yes, and a lot of people will tell you, this is how I do intersectionality. Here's how we prioritize it. But intersectionality is not something you do. It's not a verb. It's actually a prism or a lens. It's a way of looking at things. So similarly, I like to utilize harm reduction as a way of looking at things that allows me to interrogate what is harm, what is it at the structural, communal, and interpersonal levels, and what would it mean to reduce it? So, like I just said, harm reduction is a prism or a lens, a way of looking at things. I think the central questions of harm reduction often ask us, what is harm, right? What shapes it and what exacerbates it? What creates those conditions, right? Is it naturally occurring or is it something that's created by structural forces? You know, what would it mean or look like to reduce it? And how is that reduction situationally or communally relevant? So what I mean by that is the way to reduce someone's harm, if they're talking about injecting an intravenous substance, is going to be different than if my sex worker client is talking about snorting stimulants, right? So how I offer harm reduction services is going to change based on the situation the person is in, excuse me, but also the communities that they come from. So low barrier service provision, what's a barrier? Simply put, this is an obstacle, anything that impedes your ability to access a needed material or resource. So yeah, like I said, anything that keeps you from accessing things. It also keeps you from accessing and meeting your long and short-term goals. Typically, I center goals in everything I do. Folks who know me know I don't usually use terms like addiction unless my clients use it, but I will talk about chaotic usage. And to me, chaotic usage is usage that is not in line with the user's long or short-term goals. So I think centering barriers based on your participants or yourself, right? Your ability to meet your long and short-term goals, housing, food, right? Those are goals that your clients have, goals that you have, and barriers keep you from meeting these. So barriers can be structural or concrete. They can also be abstract. What do I mean by that? needing an ID to show services. Think about all the barriers that exist to getting an ID. Think about how many buses someone might have to take to get downtown. Think about how much change they might need to go do that, right? So there's a lot of barriers to getting an ID. So if you need ID to access your services, that's a barrier that a lot of people are not going to be able to overcome. Are there stairs to enter the building, right? I'm someone who is disabled. I can't always walk. So sometimes if there's stairs, that's a space that's inaccessible to me, right? Are your services only offered in English? Do you offer anything in American Sign Language? Do you offer anything in Spanish? Think about the demographic near you. Do they speak Amharic? That's the language they speak in Ethiopia. I'm from DC, and Amharic is a very popular language there. But think about your demographic, right? And what barriers they might experience. Again, it's going to be situationally and communally relevant. So like I said, they don't have to be physical. They can be structural, institutional, or abstract. So why do barriers exist? Honestly, systems of oppression and social control, classism, racism, ableism, and anti-fat bias, misogyny and misogynoir. Misogynoir is a term coined by Black feminist Moya Bailey to talk about the specific anti-Blackness, and racism that Black women experience. Sexism and chauvinism, colorism and transphobia. These are the things that create and exacerbate barriers, to be honest. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of harm reduction and technology. And I'm not going to say anything too fancy here. Encyclopedia Britannica defines technology as the applied scientific knowledge to the practical aims of human life, or as it is sometimes phrased, to the change and manipulation of the human environment. That's like a fancy way of saying technology is how we enhance our lives. So I think a lot of people are inclined to think about tech in like the 21st century, computers, all that. Aqueducts are technology, right? Lots of different things are technology. And we've always been utilizing those to help ourselves. So since technology has always been with humans, harm has also always been with humans. We have always used technology to help us navigate harm. I would say aqueducts that are meant to bring water to a city. I don't know about you, but if I don't drink water, I feel kind of harmed, right? I don't feel good. So even that, I don't want you to take away, oh, Alex said aqueducts are the pinnacle of harm reduction technology. But I do want to show you, so long as we have had to navigate harm, we have used technology to help us navigate it and help us mitigate it. So I'm going to move into talking about social media and how you can use different social media platforms to advance harm reduction work, right? And also not just advance things, but connect with your clientele, your participants, and the community around you. So IG, Instagram, on IG, you have posts, right? These are like the main things you put up. You have your story. So your story is something that resets every 24 hours. You can also share things there. You can use live. This is where you go live to do a workshop, I think, or you can use it for anything, but it's just like a live talk. And I think the longest that you can go live on a business account or a personal account is about 2 hours. I talk a lot and I've done stuff on live. I like to do Narcan trainings and things there. And I've had a message that was like, girl, shut up, you're talking too much. But I think the cutoff is about 2 hours. They also have marketplace. So if you sell merch, if you raise money that way by selling t-shirts, things like that, you can use marketplace. There's also messaging, right? Like most social media sites have internal messaging. Instagram has DMs. On Twitter, you can do what's called Twitter storms. So for example, one of the coalitions I'm part of is called Bridges. And Bridges is a coalition in Baltimore that works to prioritize OPS, overdose prevention sites. And so they did a Twitter storm. We were doing advocacy up in Annapolis. And typical NIMBYism, unfortunately, someone had said, you know, I agree with the things, I like what you're saying, but I don't want it on my block. I don't want it near me. NIMBYism, right? And we had responded and said, actually, I'd love it on my block. Yes, on my block. And so they used this hashtag to rally support and get engagement and raise awareness. But they did a Twitter storm. And a Twitter storm can be something as simple as, okay, Thursday, May 11th at 4 p.m., all of us are going to use this hashtag and we're going to tweet, yes, on my block. I'm going to say all the reasons I like OPS or all the reasons I like syringe programs or whatever it is. And we're going to use this Twitter storm. That's going to increase accessibility. You can tweet at people. Who are your lawmakers? Look them up, right? So it can be a great vehicle towards advocacy. You also have hashtags, like I just mentioned. You can do threads, which allow you to talk about one particular topic and it will stay connected. So a thread can be however long you want it to. But let's say I wanted to talk about naloxone just got approved for over-the-counter usage, right? Let's say I wanted to explain to people how to utilize naloxone. I could do like a 15 tweet thread that talks about this. You also have messaging there. So TikTok, I admit, I'm not as young as I look. right? I look very young, but I'm not. So I'm not on TikTok because I think it's good, but I do in my mind associate it with like younger generations and like Gen Z. But TikTok is great. I have seen people talk about using cookers on TikTok. That's incredible. So think about using things. We just talked about how naloxone got approved for over-the-counter usage, right? You can do a naloxone training on TikTok. I do naloxone trainings on Twitter Live, but there's no reason you can't use TikTok to spread your services, to spread harm reduction awareness and explain to people how to help themselves through harm reduction via TikTok. They have videos that you just like kind of have up. They also have lives. Discord is just a social media site where you can have channels. I think that that would probably be better helpful for you keeping in contact with your staff more than anything client facing. Facebook, I won't dwell too much here. I think we all pretty much know Facebook by now. You've got messages, you can do events, you can do lives, you can do posts, you can make groups, you can share photos. Facebook, like I said, I think most of us know our way around Facebook by now. So talking about social media, we need to talk about social media and misinformation. Just because you heard it online does not mean it is true. This is why it is so important for us as harm reductionists to lead these conversations, make sure we are included in them. I cannot tell you how much misinformation I hear from social media, right? I hear things about fentanyl, that's misinformation. People saying, oh, well, they were going around pricking people with laced needles. Who said that? Where's that coming from? Who's reporting that, right? Let's be very mindful to fact check the things we hear. And if we're doing that and we're saying this is coming from a bunk source, you're a harm reductionist. You are the expert, right? You're in the position to understand drug research, understand impoverished populations, understand stigma, understand inequity. We say all the time, nothing about us without us, right? Social media is a platform that we can use to prioritize that and make sure nothing is being shared about us, about the work we're doing without us. We really need to be leading those conversations. I think that that is so, so crucial. You're going to continue to see more and more misinformation about fentanyl, right? About overdose reports, things that are just not accurate. Right. And it's very dangerous because a lot of this just reinforces fear mongering and reinforces stigma and makes things more dangerous for the communities that we are trying to serve. So when you see something on social media, ask yourself, is it true? Is it accurate? Has it been fact checked? Who's saying they fact checked it? Right? Who's reporting this and who's responding to it? A lot of the time you get sensationalism that people take hold of and they use it to say, oh, drug users, they're awful, they're dangerous, they're infecting our communities, right? So be very mindful about who's using this soundbite or who's using this piece of information and what are they using it for. So I'm interested in building bridges, right? So I ask myself, how can technology be a liaison? How it can be this connecting piece? How can it be this bridge or this vehicle to achieve change? Because I do believe very much that it can be. So you see, I'm giving you a lot of questions to ask yourselves, but I'm a person who likes asking questions. I like talking a lot, as I think you can see. So I think we have to ask ourselves, how do we use technology to build a bridge to inaccessible spaces? And what do we do when technology is used to divide? So I want to add one more point about technology. I'm not here to tell you that technology is the most accessible space. It's not. You need a Wi-Fi connection. You need a phone. I'm coming to you from a laptop. You need a laptop. That costs a lot of money. Phones cost a lot of money, right? I always know around the end of the month, a lot of my clients are not going to be accessible because of like phone bills and stuff. So like I said, I'm not here to tell you, oh yeah, the internet's the most accessible space, but it can be used to prioritize accessibility. So like I said, we ask ourselves, how do we use technology to build a bridge? And can it be used to build a bridge to the people that we want to serve? So I like this movie with Kevin Costner. I can't say I'm a big sports person, but I do like watching baseball. And in the movie Field of Dreams, there's a field that's like kind of haunted by the ghosts of old baseball players, right? Like Shoeless Joe Jackson and stuff. And the field whispers, if you build it, they will come. And I find myself thinking about this all the time, not in reference to baseball, but in reference to harm reduction, because yes, if you build it, they will come. I don't think a lot of people always understand when they're new to harm reduction work. Your clients do not know you. You're coming into a community of people who have been there for generations, who know each other, who have connections, and you want to offer services. Why should they trust you? That's a legitimate question. Who are you? One of the places I used to work is Spark, which is a harm reduction organization connected to Johns Hopkins. There's a lot of people who don't trust Johns Hopkins. Of course, there are clients who go to the hospital, they say they need help, and they get given no lidocaine. They get dismissed for being drug seeking, right? So they have a natural distrust of me. It is my job not just to provide services and say, well, I have the syringes, I have the works, why aren't they coming? I need to demonstrate to my community that I deserve to be there, that they can trust me. How do I use social media for that? That's the question that I want to ask. And that's the question that I want to answer. So your clients are used to feeling unwanted, right? They're navigating stigma every day of their lives, all the time, right? Often their lives are shaped by stigma. So they have their feelers out for that, right? So they're not automatically going to come in and trust you. Oh, you say you're here to help me and give me some things? Okay, cool, thanks, right? Demonstrate to your community that you are part of it, right? That you're not just someone, hi, I'm here to give you these resources from outside, but I am in the community and I care about communal safety. I'll tell a short story because it's one of my favorite harm reduction stories. And I think it really gets to the root of what harm reduction is as I understand it. I was doing overnight outreach with an organization and a woman came out and flagged our van down. She said, hey, do you have condoms, right? Gave her some and she says, I don't really like that these girls are out here doing this in reference to sex workers. I don't think it's really good, but I want them to be safe. That's harm reduction. Hey, you know what? Morally, I'm kind of opposed to this. I don't really like it, but I care about the safety of my community members. I care about the safety of my neighbors. And if you can give me a material to help my neighbors be safer, that's all I care about. That's what harm reduction is. So how do you demonstrate to these people that you are there to serve them, that you are there to help them, right? That's what we need to do as harm reductionists. And how can we use tech to reach more people and share our services more widely? So technology increases support. It's about strategy and being plugged in, right? Your community is utilizing social media. I can't tell you how many people have come to computer labs at places where I've worked just to check Facebook, right? Sure, to check email, do job apps, but a lot of it was to get connected to other people, right? Check in with their roommate, talk to their mom on Facebook. They might not have a data plan, right? They might not have minutes on their phone, but they can come use Facebook and talk to their mom, right? So it's about being plugged in. People are already plugged into social media and using their community that way. We need to be there too. So like I said, technology has to be rooted in the community. I'm not here to tell you that the algorithm, that's another talk for another time, doesn't play a big part, but I think it's very, very important to be mindful of the ways technology plugs us in directly to one another. I think it's buy-in for the community. Like I said before, nothing about us without us. You can go live right now and talk about stigma and bias, barriers to advocacy. You can do that at any time, right? So think about how you're using it to make sure nothing is being said about us without us. How do we make sure we are part of that conversation? And how do we make sure our clients are part of that conversation and our participants? How do we use social media to amplify their voices? So harm reduction and technology in the future, just like I said, our lives have always been intertwined with technology. We've always been using it to navigate harm, right, and mitigate harm. The intersecting futures of harm reduction and technology will continue to intertwine, as they always have. More and more conversations surrounding harm reduction, substance use safety, and even advocacy will happen online via social media platforms. Conversely, you're going to see more misinformation, more damaging narratives, more stigma. It's all going to increase as we come to rely on technology more and more, and it occupies more space in our lives, right? So new software, platforms, and applications will all be created as we grow with technology, and we should be mindful how we can use these new platforms and new technology to enhance harm reduction services and also access new spaces and make sure community members are being reached. So I'm talking a lot about community. Ask yourself, if you already haven't, who's in your community, right? This is going to include your participants or your clients, your neighbors, right? Who's around you. If you're in a neighborhood, do you have residential neighbors, right? I've had that. I've had places where we had neighbors and didn't. Shop owners, these might be your biggest supporters or not. Peers, staff members, who else? Think about what their needs are. Do they have material needs, social, structural, interpersonal? What sort of support do they need? And how can technology help you meet those needs? Do you offer outreach? All the places I've worked, I did outreach. So do you engage in live outreach? Social media can help you. You can use Canva to make graphics, share those on Instagram, put that up on TikTok, put that up on Facebook, right? Go live. I did a live with someone from Baltimore Harm Reduction Coalition talking about stigma in healthcare because of a tweet that I saw, right? And that was a live we did for 1.5 hours. We advertised it, made the flyer in Canva, right? Twitter, like I mentioned before, you can do Twitter storms, you can use hashtags. So staying safe on social media is live. Please consider who is watching. If you're gonna do a live where you're talking about pipes, you're talking about syringes, think about how that soundbite might be used. I think most of us are aware as harm reductionists how soundbites have been taken out of context and used against us, right? This is for the safety of your community. That means your participants, your staff members, your clients, right? So please try to mind this. You need to create a social media policy if you're going to be using social media, and that's going to prioritize what happens if your clients try to friend you. What are your D&D hours? Do you operate on social media after your center is closed? Right? Who's going to be responsible for managing your social media? Who will be visible, and what's that visibility mean for their safety? Right? Consider people who use drugs, sex workers, family members. Right? Do they want to be visible talking about those things? So, quick point about phones. Who's trying to contact you? Who mans your phones? Who's operating? What's the landing? When someone calls you, who do they first speak to? You can have outreach hotlines, right? That allows you to reach your clients. I know HIPS, a place I used to work, uses outreach hotlines to manage their outreach program. Text messaging, the way their hotline works, that it can be pushed to anybody's phone. And then like, I'll get it when I sign up, and then I can just get all the text messages. Actually, I don't think it does text messages, it does those calls, but all the calls get go to my phone for like a certain amount of time. It's like a 12-hour shift. But do you want to do text messaging? You can use things like Google Voice or Vonage to do that. Those are some carriers that you can use that allows you to maintain your anonymity and privacy while still engaging in phone services. I won't dwell too long on this. Virtual meetings, I think we all know about Zoom, right? Because of the pandemic, WebEx, Microsoft Teams. Last point, data. I am a nerd. I love data. My background is psychology, right? So data provides invaluable information about your organization. It can tell you about your demographic and any changes, right? But it's only good so long as you track it. So if you do not track it, you will not see it. You can use Salesforce, Asana, Excel, Monday.com. You can use really anything to track data. You can use a pen and paper, but just make sure your notes are good. Metrics, I'm gonna end here, right? Metrics, just like who's engaging your social media, who's watching your story, who's commenting most often, who's sharing it. This is also going to give you insight about your population, right? Are the people sharing your story your actual target demographic, or are they your volunteers, right? So last point, please be mindful about boundaries in social media. Parasocial relationships just refer to like, just because you do a Twitter thread and someone comments on it does not mean they are your friend, right? So have a social media policy that minds boundaries in parasocial relationships, protect your clients, protect your participants, protect people who work for you. Here are my references, and thank you so much. And I think we have open for questions.
Woo! That was some fire right there. Love it. Thank you so much. We have like 2-3 minutes. If anyone has any questions, comments, you can, like I said, you can throw it in the chat and or raise your hand, and I will try to get to you. I saw lots of amazing comments along the way.
I see the points about loving data. I'm glad we have some fellow nerds. I'm like a public health nerd through and through, so I love data.
100%. Yeah.
Access new spaces. My harm reductionist came on his way home. Okay, I'm just going to make clear the chat. How do you manage privacy and protect participant anonymity with these platforms? I think you can create a waiver, right? And people need to sign a waiver, right? You always want to be as communicative as possible with your clients. I'm not just going around snapping pictures. Hey, may I take a picture of you? Right? And if I'm going to use this on the website, there's waivers that you can create, right? They already have kind of scripts for this, but use that, right? You don't ever just want to put somebody up, like I said, especially because if you're a harm reduction center, people know that. They know you're giving away syringes. And so if you're putting up on someone on social media, you don't ever want to put someone in a position where they're having to navigate more harm. Like that's the opposite of the whole thing, right? We don't want to increase their harm. It's harm reduction. So think about that visibility. And you might not even want to put clients on your social media, and that's totally fine. You don't have to, right? It should always be used to enhance your services, right? But safety always needs to be the priority. And so managing privacy, like I said, let your clients know what's going to be done with their image, what's going to be done with their words, where it's going to go, and be mindful. Once something is on the internet, as people told me when I was younger, it's there forever. Sure, technology has changed. I'm not as worried as I was in the early 2000s about stuff I put on social media, but I am doing things where I'm talking about syringes, right? That might follow me. People might ask me about that, and it might impact other opportunities. I mean, I work in harm reduction, but think about those things. Think about people's families seeing it, right? But these are all things that you're going to be mindful of as you create your social media policy, right? And that can be very extensive. The social media policies that I've created have been like 2 pages, single spaced, right? And I think that that's really important, and it allows you to think about safety, and the safety, like I said, of those you serve and those who work for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Woo, it's like the full fire hose of Alex. I love it so much. Can we give a round of emoji love and applause and whoop whoops for the lovely Alex Wilson? Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, look at it. So good. Fantastic. Just going to pause the recording for 1 second so that we are able to separate these videos more easily.
Sorry, also, I will put my email in the chat if anybody has any questions or wants to follow up, or if you'd like the slides, please, I apologize, that was gross, but go ahead and just shoot me an email.
Amazing. Thank you. We will also be posting people's information and contact details in our follow-up email to everyone who registered today. So if you don't catch it in the chat, you will.